When U.S. Foods bought Renzi's food service in Watertown, some wondered if a planned expansion would move forward, one that had a lot of public investment already. Well, it is happening, and we learn from 7 News reporter Brendan Straub.
Tucked back in Watertown City Center Industrial Park, Renzi Food Service has begun a warehouse expansion, a 10,000 square foot addition with 8 new refrigerated docks, which will help with receiving and loading product.
The Renzi Food Service has grown tremendously over the past few years, and we look to continue that, and this will help support growth within the central New York.
Growth that will be supported by U.S. Foods, which recently bought the local family-owned business back in May. U.S. Foods already has facilities in Buffalo and Albany. Renzi's is its first north of the Thruway.
And it'll help us greater penetrate the area and service our customers better.
With this new expansion comes the opportunity for job growth. Downey says when it's all said and done, Renzi Food Service will have more than 300 employees.
We are hiring sales, we are hiring warehouse, we are hiring drivers currently.
However, for the expansion to happen, more land was needed. It meant a rail spur adjacent to the property had to be moved, a substantial investment. Once that was done, the Watertown Local Development Corporation was able to transfer the land and plans could continue.
We had to provide the infrastructure for them to build on and expand if that was their choice. We were willing to do it along with Renzi. Now that U.S. Food has taken over, we're going to certainly support their ventures as well.
The project is set to be completed by spring of 2024. Brendan Straub, 7 News.